Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. I am a registered holistic nutritionist and advanced fertility nutritional practitioner and podcaster, content creator, all the things. And I'm really excited to be here live, about to bring you this episode. Before we jump in, I have a couple things I want to talk about. Some super interesting research that I want to share. Now, I'm going to link this in the show notes because I think this is so fascinating for all the women out there listening to this episode, especially if you are pregnant. So if you don't know, if you're new, I'm pregnant. I am due very soon in July. And I saw this video that popped up on my TikTok feed. And it was another podcaster interviewing the founder of Whoop. Now, if you don't know, Whoop is like an activity tracker bracelet almost that you wear on your wrist. And it's kind of like the Apple Watch, but there's no face to it. And it's all about like activity and things like that. My husband had one, and so I've used them before. Anyway, so they were talking about HRV and RHR. And so HRV is heart rate variability. RHR is resting heart rate. And they were talking about their findings during pregnancy. This is so interesting, you guys. I cannot even explain. I'm just so excited about this. So basically, there was a study that came out a few years ago that was tracking the HRV and HRH of about 12 women using the Whoop. And they started to actually see this trend about around the 33rd week of pregnancy. Now, up until then, your HRV decreases during pregnancy significantly. Like mine is very low right now. Like the other night, it was like 26. And before I was pregnant, my HRV would be in the 80s, hundreds. I think the highest I've ever had is like maybe 130. So significant drop for me. Now, mind you, I haven't been sleeping very well, so could be related to that as well. And I measure through the Oura ring. Okay, so across the board, your HRV drops when you're pregnant. Your body is working very hard to build a baby. And your heart rate goes up. Same thing. You are pumping way more blood. I think your blood volume increases by 50%. And so there is way more work for your heart to do during pregnancy. And obviously this makes sense. So I already knew about this. I was tracking this with my Oura ring, like nothing new for me. Now, so I'm watching this video and this founder is talking about this study that they did. And around the 33rd week, they noticed a flip of this data. So the HRV, instead of going lower, actually started to rise. And then the heart rate, instead of being high, started to decrease, basically kind of like getting towards where it was pre-pregnancy. And the question that they asked in this video, the founder asked was, is this common across the board for 33 weeks? Or is this common for 7 weeks before your due date? And what they found was it was actually 7 weeks before your due date, which is wild. Okay. So then they made the study much larger. So they tracked about 2,000 women using the Whoop bracelet, and they found the exact same results. 7 weeks prior to their due date, there was a flip in the average HRV and the average RHR. So I think this is nuts. Okay. Think about this. Think about the implications of this, because what this means is that the more data we get, the more that we can study this, you would be able to predict your due date, whether that's early, preterm, what that means, whether that's much later and what that means. So I was like, so I just read this, and I'm obviously going to link this in the show notes and on my website for you, because if you're pregnant and you're tracking your data, seriously look at this, because you actually might be able to predict when your baby's coming, which would be phenomenal. Now, for me personally, my flip has not happened yet, which is interesting because I'm just started my 35th week. No, 34th week. I've completed 34 weeks and I'm in my 35th week, which means that I am going to go late. And I already thought that I was going to go late actually, because my mom went late for all three of her pregnancies. And the average due date for a first-time mom is 41 weeks at 3 days to 5 days, which is 10 days to 12 days post your date. So now this week, as I'm telling you about this study, is the week that my flip should happen if I'm going to be delivering sometime between 41 and 42 weeks. So, it's so funny. Of course, last night after I learned this information, I go to sleep and my Oura Ring's dead this morning. So I have no data from last night. But this is so interesting. So every day I'm going to be like checking, being like, okay, did my HRV go up yet? Is it still crappy? Like, what is happening here? How's my heart rate doing? Because I just think it would be so interesting to say like it happens in a few days and then be like, okay, 7 weeks from today is this date, and then see when I give birth. And I will 100% be reporting back if this happens, because holy smokes, what a fascinating topic and what a fascinating thing that you could do if you're pregnant right now and track it. If you are pregnant and you're in the early stages and you don't have a tracker, seriously get one. I think everyone should have some sort of tracker. My personal favorite is the Oura Ring. You can get whatever you like. You could do this with like Apple Watch, Whoop, or Oura, but Oura is my preference. So stay tuned for that information. Now, I don't know if I haven't released my due date because I don't want people like up in my business too much about it, but you could probably figure it out by like what I've been telling you in this intro. But anyway, so stay tuned. I'm going to definitely report back on that because again, I just find it so interesting. Today's episode is all about alcohol. This is such a fascinating topic as somebody who is currently sober. Obviously, I'm pregnant and and I talk about this on the episode. I have done various challenges where I have stayed away from alcohol and decided to, not drink. So my baby steps program, there's no alcohol in it for 90 days. And this is what all my members do as well. You can join that. It's linked everywhere. That's for preconception and fertility. And I've done 75 hard multiple times and, there's no alcohol there. And I've slowly been becoming more and more sober since 2018. And so we kind of dive into that. We dive into Karolina's story as well and what she's kind of seen with the people that she's worked with and the way society is moving towards being less and less alcohol based, which is awesome, which is great. So we get into that. I hope this really encourages you to think twice about the next time you drink, or encourages you if you are sober that like you're making such a healthy decision for yourself and like keep going. I think it's a really beautiful choice, and everyone to each their own and that type of thing. And if you've been listening to my podcast for a long time, you very well know that I have not been sober this entire time. I have been drinking on and off. I've done like wine trips in California and New Zealand. And so I am not someone who's here to preach about being sober for their, the last few years of their whole life, because that has not been my journey at all. For me, it's been a very slow journey of kind of taking it out of my life. And so once I have this baby and I go through postpartum, I'm not sure where I'm going to stand with it. And that is a decision I'm going to make in the next year. To be honest, part of me doesn't really want to return back to alcohol. So we'll see if I end up doing that. Lots to think about. And a shout out to the sponsors of this week, Mimeo. I know you guys love Mimeo. Mimeo is the supplement for all the people out there who are looking for enhancing longevity and cellular health. It has 4 different ingredients in it that mimic cellular turnover and autophagy in your body, and also mimic a 36-hour fast, which I think is really cool. So if you don't want to fast, but you want the benefits from fasting because you kind of see it everywhere, Mimeo is the supplement for you, spelled Mimio. Linked in my show notes and on my website. I love taking this. I think it's phenomenal for cellular cleanup. And I think we all need it no matter what your age is. I think we all need longevity support because of our lifestyle and the world that we're in now. I don't think longevity is something that's left up to, 50 plus at all. I think the earlier you start supporting your cells and working on your cellular health and your mitochondria, the better. So I think Mimeo is making waves in this space. So I really recommend them. You can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany to save you money, which I love to do for you. And a shout out to recommend. Oh my gosh, I got such good feedback from my podcast episode with them. And it was all about libido, sexual energy, and everything surrounding that. And I think that is so fascinating. So they have a few products. So they have the men's plus formula and man plus formula. And it is all about helping with that stamina, that energy, that libido, regardless of the age that you're at. And it does it through vitamins, minerals, and a blend of herbs, traditional Chinese herbs that have been proven to help this. It actually works, and my husband will be the testament to it. And I talked about it on our podcast episode, but essentially it's really great for those men who maybe work a lot and have lower testosterone and have higher stress. And maybe you're not as sexually active as you want to be or you were, and not because you don't have the opportunity, but more because you don't have the energy. This is for you. And then they obviously made the lady formula to complement this. So I know a lot of women struggle with this. A lot of women struggle with low libido, and their lady plus formula is exactly for this as well. If you're going through postpartum and you have the postpartum depletion that happens, this can be phenomenal for you. If you are going through perimenopause or menopause and, you would like to kind of be at that place where you're feeling a bit more excited and have higher libido and energy and you kind of want to have that like robust sexual energy, that would be for you as well. And I think women are kind of more susceptible to this during those hormonal changes. So I love that product as well. It will definitely be something that I will keep on my roster when I go through postpartum, just to be supportive as I need. And then they have their Clear Focus product. This is basically it's like a nootropic. It's very supportive for brain health, helps with memory recall, brain function, and everything like that, which is really important, especially if you are tired and have a lot going on and need support. So that's recommend. You can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany in all capitals for 20% off. That is a lot. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it makes a big difference for you. And enjoy this podcast episode. I think you're going to learn a lot. And I really hope it supports you on your health and nutrition and alcohol journey, whatever that might look like for you. And I will catch you on Friday for another episode. Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so happy that you are tuning in today for another episode. And I'm really excited about diving into this topic. We are talking all things becoming sober, going alcohol free. And I will definitely share my journey with this myself throughout this episode. But more importantly, I have an expert on the show who is going to talk about this. Her name is Karolina Rzadkowolska. Hopefully I said her last name right. And she is a leading voice in the alcohol-free movement. She's also an author of the best-selling book, Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. She has transformed thousands of lives by helping people break free from alcohol, uncover their true purpose, and embrace a more joyful, confident life, which we love. So, Karolina, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And I don't think I've ever dedicated a full episode to alcohol before or becoming sober. So this has kind of been a long time running or coming in my head of like something that I really wanted to dive into. And so when I saw, when we reached out and we got connected, I was like, this is the perfect person to have to talk about this. So I would love for you to kind of take us back and what first sparked your interest in, maybe putting alcohol aside in your own personal life?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting phenomenon. Most of us who grow up in westernized countries, even in the East as well, like alcohol is just a really prominent part of growing up, socializing, relaxing at home, whatever that looks like. And I find that, the conversations we have around alcohol often stem around this black and white conversation. Either you're drinking way too much and you have to quit drinking and call yourself an alcoholic, or it's all okay, like you to keep drinking, you're a moderate drinker, there's no problem with that. And so I found myself grappling with this black and white, conversation because I started drinking in late high school and then in college, really picked up like partying. It was a huge identity of mine. I didn't have much healthy coping skills back then and used, drinking and partying as a big way to just unwind and be extroverted and meet friends. But as I got older, as I grew up, I started kind of putting my party ways down and I started to really invest into a more healthy and mindful lifestyle, especially in my mid to late 20s. And I found that drinking was still something that I did, but I kind of compartmentalized it into the weekend. So Monday through Thursday, I was pretty healthy. I was like going to yoga classes, like eating a lot of vegetables. And then every single weekend, I would drink, I would go out, I would socialize or go to, a networking event, party, whatever, have maybe Netflix with wine at home. And no matter what, every single Monday morning, I woke up feeling a shell of myself. I woke up feeling exhausted, like I got no sleep over the weekend, even if I clocked in 8 hours each night. I woke up feeling like low and ashamed. And I woke up feeling like I took 2 steps forward in my healthy lifestyle during the week and then 5 steps backwards over the weekend. Basically living on this kind of merry-go-round phenomenon week after week after week. And I knew that I wanted to take a break from alcohol for so long, but I was so kind of scared about those labels and just the judgment of someone who drinks or, stops drinking alcohol as having a big problem or something like that. So I kept kind of clinging to like, okay, well, I'll just try drinking less and less and less. And the thing is I was successful at that. I was drinking less and less year after year, but it was so much micromanaging. It was so many rules I put for myself, so many things like, okay, only 2 drinks or only this kind of alcohol or not drinking at this time. And it just felt like a madhouse. Like there's so much mental energy that was going to it. And finally, I heard of Dry January back in 2018. And I was like, this is what I need. Like, I just need a full break from it. And I needed really an excuse that I could tell people so that I didn't have to explain anything else, really. And so Dry January was the first time as an adult that I actually took a prolonged break from alcohol. Literally, ever since I was 17 years old, I had drank every single weekend, right? So it's like, as an adult, I didn't even know what my body, what my mental state, what my, the systems that none of it I knew without alcohol. And so that break allowed me to really rebalance and to really come home to like what my natural body felt like, my natural energy levels. And it opened my eyes in the best way possible. First of all, I get so much more energy. My sleep improves so much. I feel so much better. My mood rebalances. I get so much more happier moods. I'm noticing myself just finding joy and like almost excitement to just be in nature and, little things that just feel super mundane all of a sudden started to resonate so much more on my mind. And I really enjoyed the experience. But after it ended, February came around and I was basically like, well, normal adults drink. So if I want to be normal, I better drink. And I drank a few times in February. And the contrast like really hit me over the head. Even 1 or 2 drinks would completely ruin my sleep, make me feel super groggy and tired the next day. And I also noted that even in the moment, like of having a drink, I thought I was drinking to have fun. And I just noticed that like 1 or 2 drinks would completely like topple down my mood. I was feeling so like high and exuberant in January. And then 1 or 2 drinks, so like a few minutes to hours later, I was feeling like frustrated and cranky and moody. And I was like, what the hell is going on? This is not the fun thing I thought it was. So I decided to take another break at that time in February 2018. And I've basically been alcohol free ever since. And it just got better and better and better. And one of the things that really happened for me was that not only did I rebalance my body and get into the best health I've ever been, I also was able to like really repair my self-esteem and self-love and really increase my sense of confidence and courage. And I realized that one of the reasons I was drinking was that, to me, Monday through Friday couldn't get fast enough. And I just couldn't wait for the weekend to like unwind. And I didn't realize how unfulfilled I was throughout the week. And so I kind of changed my lifestyle and started to really find what is that deeper fulfillment and sense of purpose for me and completely 180. I used to work in a cubicle and like commute to a 9 to 5 and just feel super unfulfilled and use drinking as the highlight of my week. And, ever since then, I grew a company and wrote a book and fulfilled all these dreams that had once been pipe dreams because I now had that confidence and courage that I got from going alcohol free. And so that's a message I love to share, not only the health benefits, which I'm sure we'll go into really deep today, but also just how much confidence and courage you get out of it. It's just an incredible gift that I'd love to grant as many people as I can. Because for most of us, unless you're pregnant, it's not really normal in adulthood to even have that much space away from alcohol.
Let's talk about Mimeo, a breakthrough longevity supplement that hacks your biology to help you look and feel younger. It was created by PhDs in nutrition from over 7 years of clinical research, and Mimeo was designed to mimic the longevity benefits of fasting in a simple daily pill. Not only has Mimeo been shown to extend lifespan in animals by 96%, but users have been able to take as much as 2.5 years off their biological age in just 8 weeks. How? Mimeo's groundbreaking biomimetic formula uses a patented blend of all natural metabolites that work together to help your cellular health from the inside out. First, there's OEA, which is a metabolic supercharger clinically proven to help control appetite and promote fat metabolism, so you can crush those cravings and silence food noise throughout the day. Then there's spermidine, the cellular autophagy activator, helping clear out cellular junk to boost cognition, clear brain fog, and refresh your cells. Next, there's nicotinamide, a broad-spectrum NAD+ booster that's been shown to improve everything from metabolism to skin glow to immune health. And lastly, there's PEA, one of the body's most powerful rest and repair molecules that helps control inflammation, relieve discomfort, and enhance recovery so you can get that youthful energy back. Mimeo is designed to work like a super fast, super efficient fasting diet, but without actually having to fast. It's all about tapping into the power of your own biology, giving your body the cheat code to work its best, making you feel younger and healthier today. You can try Mimeo today. Use my discount code at checkout, which is biohackingbrittany, and you can get all of these benefits in a simple supplement today. Again, that's biohackingbrittany in all capitals. So definitely try it and let me know what you think. Absolutely. I can relate so much to your story, almost like to a T with your timeline. I haven't been sober since 2018 though, and I think that is incredible. So good job. Congratulations. That is a big accomplishment, but very, very similar. I started drinking at the end of high school. In university and college, I was drinking 4 nights a week, and I would justify it with having things like, vodka waters or the whiskey waters or all of these things that I would say it's somewhat healthier because at least it's not beer or at least it's not some sort of cooler or whatever. And arguably it is, right? Without as much sugar, but I was still drinking all of the time. And then when I got into my 20s and, corporate life and that type of thing, I would drink on the weekends, and it was the exact same thing of Monday to Thursday. I can't wait for Friday. Friday afternoon would hit. And it was this I don't even know, addiction, sure, but impulse of Friday happy hour, I'm going to have a drink. And when I first started to have to break, learning to break that habit, I was actually shocked at how hard it was for me when Friday would roll around to not drink. I didn't realize how much it had become a part of my life until I started to take a step back. And that's when I knew I was like, oh, I think I have a stronger relationship with alcohol than I've ever cared to admit or thought of.
And it's I think our stories, I think why they're so relatable is that they're just so common. This is such a common experience. If you grow up here, obviously we're kind of socialized into drinking. And we pick it up at an early age, and then it's just a habit we're supposed to have for life. And we don't really get that many tools to become introspective of is this actually serving me and making me happy and aligned with my health and other values in life?
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes a part of the way that you relate to people, right? So if you're going out with girls, you're having a girls' night and then you're drinking, or you're going on a date and you go out for drinks, whatever it looks like, there's so much opportunity for alcohol. It's so embedded in our society, like you said, that to turn away from it is this very conscious decision that you have to make because everyone around you is kind of not doing that. So for most people, there are cultures where it's different, but at least for North America, that's kind of what I see.
Yeah. And I think that's such a cool conversation to have with your audience, because I think in general, the people listening to the show and your community are already kind of willing to do things a little differently in life, right? Are already willing to take a step up in their health, take a step up in their happiness, and not just be average. And, most people are unhealthy, most people are unhappy, and most people are unfulfilled. So it's like average is nothing that we actually really want to aspire to. And I think it's like that alcohol is really entering this conversation because I was, health was such a big value of mine. I tried to eat so well. I always wanted to work out, but it's like when you threw alcohol into the mix, all those things were out the window, right? Like maybe I'd still go to a hot yoga class, but I would be dying in there, if I drank the night before. And so it was so hard to actually keep up with my health goals because it was I started and stopped all the time. And it just made me feel so shameful and just not very proud of myself. And it was just, again, really compartmentalized. Here I have my life where I'm living my life to my values and things I want. And then here I'm just doing other, something to people please and to make people happy and to ascribe to this social habit that we've all kind of bought into. So it's actually, I think, the most rebellious thing we can do is to really find a way, it doesn't mean you have to ditch alcohol forever, but just to find a relationship and or a pattern with it that, is really truly of your choosing instead of what just social events are on your calendar or whatever habit kind of dictates. And I think one of the best ways of doing that is to take a break from alcohol to kind of get some space away from it and rebalance that habit, the mindset, and also the neurochemistry so that you can actually get some clarity away from it to really determine what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And when it was in 2018, I got my first Oura ring. And that was really actually what started moving me away from alcohol. And everyone has different experiences, but for me, I needed to actually see the data on my health of how is this impacting me? How is it impacting my sleep? And once I started seeing my heart rate on nights that I would drink, my HRV, my sleep stats were atrocious. They were terrible. And then you wake up in the next morning, you look at your app and you're like, wow, this is what alcohol does. It could be one glass of wine and it would still throw it off. Or obviously, you drink a lot and it really throws it off. And that is what I needed in order to really wake me up to see, okay, regardless of all the people who say red wine might have polyphenols and it might be healthy for you, that doesn't look actually what it's doing to my health on a real day-to-day basis. This is something I think I need to move away from.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love that the more wearable devices we're getting, the more evidence we're getting of that. One glass of wine has been proven to completely reduce our REM sleep cycles. So you could still get the 8 hours of sleep and have just completely unrestful sleep. And that's where I was finding myself. I was groggy and tired all the time, even when I was sleeping all night, basically. And, some of us actually experience the fragmented sleep or waking up in the middle of the night. Alcohol, because it's a depressant, it actually introduces a counter effect in the body where the body produces stimulants in order to react to it. So when we drink alcohol, we're actually releasing cortisol, adrenaline, and something called dynorphin, which is basically the opposite of endorphins. They actually make us feel really low and sad. And so most of the time we can feel this effect after drinking, maybe an hour to 2 hours after we have a drink, where we kind of just crash a little bit. We feel a little moodier and a little bit more cranky or impatient after a drink. But most times we, have another drink before that can happen or something like that, or we just go to sleep. And so a lot of people feel this effect in the middle of the night when they wake up maybe at 3 or 4 a.m., can't go back to sleep, pretty just awake. Or in the next day, there's just a lot of anxiety, a lot of that low hangover feeling that, is not just physical, but also it's emotional as well because of all that dynorphin flooding your brain. And so dynorphin is this neurochemical that was actually found in really high levels of people who commit suicide. It just makes you feel horrible, makes you feel really low. And, I had these Monday crashes every weekend after drinking that I really identified with, something must be wrong with me or why do I feel this way? And it just was so nice and refreshing to actually learn about the science of alcohol to be oh, it wasn't me at all. The bad sleep, the low moods, none of that was me. It was all that neurochemical effect of alcohol. And now that the lowness or that anxiety that we can feel from the cortisol, the dynorphin, the adrenaline, it doesn't actually get processed out of the body as quickly as ethanol does, which isn't that quick either necessarily, especially the older you get. but those actually can last much longer, for a whole week, even 2 weeks for some people. So a lot of times, like I felt this, like you were saying, I get this high from happy hour on Friday, and then I feel pretty blah the rest of the week. My body was always just, still having the counter effects of alcohol. Like once you remove alcohol, your natural mood, your natural energy, your natural like receptivity to dopamine and other really great neurotransmitters that are making you happy actually goes higher. So it's a really incredible cycle to just take that step back, remove it for a little while, and see how your body actually feels and rebalances and then really does react.
I love that. I love that you touched on how it impacts our emotions, our brain health, and our mental health. Something that I've always found interesting about alcohol is that we turn to it in moments of celebration and in really difficult moments as well. So, say there's a tragedy or something happens, or you have a hard day at work, right? You go home, you crack a beer, or you pour yourself a glass of wine. And there's all of this culture of like moms who drink wine to like help with their kids. And there's that whole issue, that whole thing as well. But then there's also like moments of celebration, right? So at a wedding or at a birthday, we drink alcohol as well. And it's so interesting as a culture how we kind of just turn to it no matter what intense emotion that we might be feeling. And I kind of always thought like, why? Why do we do that? Is it like comfort? Or is it like we're seeking something in the alcohol to help us understand what is kind of going on in front of us? Like, I don't know if you have any insight on that, but I always thought that was weird or interesting.
Yeah. And that's what it's interesting as well, is that like you don't just go to alcohol for that one need, right? And it's like, it's the same thing that you reach to in stress as it is the same thing that you reach to feel like more excited. So it's like, how is alcohol really doing all these jobs, right? And I think that happens in our society as we get conditioned, and then through habit itself and exposure, we come to learn, whether this is misguided or not, we come to learn that alcohol meets these needs. So say you're in a really stressful time in your life, you're overwhelmed, maybe, you have children at home, maybe your career is really stressful. Alcohol starts to become the tool you use to relax. Now, alcohol, like biologically, doesn't actually relax a human body. Like I just talked about, it releases actually more stress hormones in your body, more chaos with the sleep, like that there's actually more stress that's put into your body when you're drinking. The body has to also detox alcohol, which produces more stress into the body. And so, it's not really relaxing. It just kind of like stops your brain's ability to be able to recognize like, the previous stressful, situation. It's essentially just numbing you, right? Which doesn't necessarily help in the long term at all. And so like we learn to use it, to relax. And then, but at the same time, it's a Friday night and you're excited to go see your friends, and you're using alcohol to not relax, but to like get a little high and to get excited and to have sense of adventure. And so it's like we have all these needs. And one of my favorite needs models comes from Tony Robbins, where he says we have the need for, kind of like stability and security, which he calls, just everything being like very routine and like, the sense of just like control over your life. But that we also need the need for variety and adventure and, things to be different all the time. We have a need for love and connection. We have a need for significance. And alcohol seems to get like roped into every single one of those needs. And so it's like, no wonder we're kind of, as a society, really dependent on it, because we're using it to meet our needs. Now, our needs are great. They're natural needs. They're needs that we do need to take care of, but alcohol is like never actually solved them and is only making them, worse and more just prolonged, if you would say. And so I think it's really a good clue to see, like, ask yourself first, like, why do I like to drink? And then once you get those reasons, you can actually start to peel apart, like, okay, well, what needs am I trying to solve through alcohol? And, you can even debunk whether alcohol is actually serving those needs or not, and then find new ways and new tools that are much healthier and more, from within to meet those needs versus a drink like that. So, even the idea of like a stressful day, you get home from 6 p.m. and you pour a drink. In a way, the habit isn't bad, like it's not wrong. Like if you had a really long day, I do want you to have this like beautiful ritual where you sit down and you decompress and you stop worrying about work and you stop answering emails, you know what I mean? And you take a moment to yourself to just like relax. But it's like the ethanol in that alcohol isn't allowing you to do that. So like doing that with literally any other beverage could still be a really beautiful ritual to have to just decompress in that moment and actually switch on that parasympathetic nervous system, which is what you're trying to do. But that doesn't happen with alcohol.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's, there's nothing wrong with the decompressing at the end of the day. It's just like, what are you doing what are you doing in that time? Like, what are you relying on? Is it food? Some people take so much comfort in food. Is it alcohol? Is it some other substance? And what role does it play in your life? I guess is the question. When I got my Oura ring in 2018, I started doing these like 1 month stints of going alcohol free. And I think I did that until 2020. And then 2020 was the first time I did 75 hard. And 75 hard is, I'm sure you know of it, but it's a mental and physical challenge. And you're not allowed to drink any alcohol for 75 days in a row as part of one of the things that you have to do. And so that was at the time, the longest time I went without alcohol. And then I actually did 75 hard 3 different times in the span of, I don't know, 2-3 years, something like that. And then last year I did a preconception cleanse for 90 days. So I was sober for that. And then I got pregnant. Now I'm pregnant. So I've been sober for 7 months pregnant. And so that's kind of the journey I'm at right now. And it's very interesting being at this point, 7 months in, because obviously my reasonings for not drinking are beyond myself now. And that's very important to me. And some people still drink when they're pregnant, but that doesn't align with my values. But I have started thinking now, like when I have the baby soon, will I go back to alcohol? Like, is this something that I want to incorporate? And I honestly, I don't know. Like part of me really, really likes being this sober. And I have not missed alcohol a single day in the 7 months. There's not been one day where I've been like, damn, I really just want a glass of wine. Like not at all. And so I just kind of wonder if like, is it, I don't know, like, once you're sober for so long, I wonder if it's just easier to kind of stay on that train. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that. I don't even really have a question, but I'm just kind of rambling here.
Yeah. And I love that. I think, when someone is allowed to take a break from alcohol, they're able to like get that space. I don't like the idea of trying to drink less because like if you just start out with that, I mean, obviously go for wherever you are, whatever you're starting with is perfectly great, but drinking less is actually really maddening. Like there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of like, it's almost like the diet culture that just doesn't really work either. You're restricting yourself from something that you want, but you're giving yourself a little bit of it. It's just like, and alcohol itself, like, really, when I told you about that stress cycle, that's why we reach for another drink because our body actually starts to feel uncomfortable from that crash. And so it's like really natural for someone to want another drink after they have the first one. Plus that numbing effect starts to slow down the prefrontal cortex. So we can't really make judgment and decisions better. So it's just like, I think that's really, confusing and hard to do. That's why I really love promoting an extended break from alcohol, because that will give you the time and space away from it to like really rebalance your habits, change your mindset, and then really kind of rewire your subconscious beliefs around alcohol so that you're not using it out of that need or out of that, like really inherent desire. And then I think, I'm open to all paths, obviously, because I think the more just conscious we are, the more we're going to align our lives to our values and stuff like that. But, for me personally, I remember coming to this decision where I think I was around 70 days alcohol free. I never really decided to just go alcohol free forever. Like that wasn't part of like how I kind of approached it. It was just these breaks that I was taking like you were. And at that point, I was actually in Japan and I was like kind of offered a drink at this like, drinking and food tour that I was on. And I just like, something you said earlier about how good it feels to be alcohol free. Like it literally feels so good. It's like we're looking for that high or that euphoric feeling in a glass. But that's actually a feeling our bodies can naturally produce, especially when we're doing the right things and away from alcohol. And I was in that same place. I was feeling so good. I was feeling so much gratitude and awe. I was really like, having appreciation for and wonder for everything I was seeing. And I also found these dreams that I'd long kind of buried in my heart really come up to the surface. And I started even working on them by then. And to me, I just really thought about it. And I was like, I really know exactly what it feels like to drink. I know exactly how I feel the next day. I know how it affects my sleep. I know how like groggy and maybe ashamed I feel after it, but I don't know what this other road's going to give me. Like I really, that's the road untraveled, So do I want to go back to like what I've always known and like kind of the consequences of all that? Or do I want to take this road untraveled? And so I decided in that moment to, remain alcohol free and take that road untraveled. And how it's unfolded in my life has given me results that I never could have dreamed of. Like I said earlier, I was working in a cubicle. I was unfulfilled. I was just kind of like lost in my career. I was perfectly fine on the outside, by the way. Like I was still like a happy social person, not like, someone who's outwardly struggling or anything like that. but it allowed me to like, again, find my deeper purpose, allowed me to become a coach and start working in this way with other women and helping them change their relationship with alcohol, write a book. Now I have a certification program that certifies other coaches. So it's like, I just keep turning on and on and on to like the things I've always wanted to do on this planet. And so for me personally, I've always seen now like my relationship with alcohol is a little symbolic in the sense of, is it wrong or right to drink or moral? No, it's like nothing to do with any of that stuff. To me, I see it as a way of playing small. And that's, again, really personal. But I saw alcohol as a way of just like, fitting in with everyone else instead of standing on my own 2 feet, kind of going with the crowd instead of really figuring out my own, and like really kind of playing small to like, well, it's so much easier to just open a bottle of wine than write the next great American novel. So for me personally, I made this decision that like, I want to live a big life. Like I want to live an extraordinary life. And to do that, you have to do things differently than other people, right? I'm no longer interested in like what the peer pressure in a circle on a Friday night is going to say if I don't drink. You know what I mean? So I think it's always really great if you have had time space and out from alcohol, and then you're kind of just debating whether or not to go back to it. Kind of digging deep into like, well, nothing like is going to explode hopefully in your life if you go back to it. If you go back to it, then, you'll learn whether or not it really meet the needs that you're looking for, if it was really felt worth it or whatnot. But I always like to like have clients ask like, what am I think I'm looking for in that glass? Like, is it the sense of, I think life is still feeling like I'm feeling deprived without it, And I think there's so much like mindset work to be still done without that, because there's so much joy and fun and beautiful experiences to be had on this planet. And to think that like fun only lives in a glass can be like really kind of small, narrow-minded. But then also asking my clients questions like, is it the sense of like just wanting to fit in, or the camaraderie that you get, when you're drinking in like a group, and like really trying to figure out like, okay, so is that going to then cross, your sense of values and like what you are doing for yourself just to like get that, card of fitting in just for that one night? So it's just really interesting questions to kind of ask yourselves. Like if you have been taking a break, someone out there, and it's just kind of like, should I go back to drinking or not? Kind of like asking yourself and then getting really into those answers and really kind of spelling them out. Like, well, would that still make me feel happy and proud of myself and all that kind of stuff? And so, I love to guide people in whatever kind of, whatever they choose at the end of the day. But I find that most people do feel really fulfilled when they just kind of start focusing their attention on things they love instead of this like silly beverage. And I think that's kind of like what I love to kind of say at the end of the day is like, we are all geniuses. We all have so many talents and gifts to share. We came onto this planet to do big, beautiful work and make a meaningful difference. I don't have time like focusing on this stupid little beverage, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I am so excited to talk to you about a new range of products that I love from Recommend. Are you ready to revitalize your life, enhance your well-being, and unlock the full potential of your body and mind? Let's dive into their premium supplements, Man Plus Formula, Lady Plus Formula, and Clear Focus. First up, we have Man Plus Formula. Oh my gosh, I got my husband on this, and you should see these results. Designed for men who aspire beyond mediocrity, Man Plus Formula isn't just a supplement, it's a beacon of vitality. You can unleash your inner drive, optimize your natural energy, and boost your confidence with ingredients aimed at enhancing libido and stamina. What's really interesting about this supplement is my husband went on it and seriously noticed an increase in his libido. So much so that in the morning he was waking up happier, if you know what I mean, and just had more stamina and energy throughout the day. So he actually really, really loves this formula. It's got a bunch of vitamins, minerals, and herbs in it designed to really support men's libido, stamina, and drive. The Lady Plus formula is very, very simple. It can help enhance your sexual wellness, support hormonal balance, and revitalize your passion. I think this is super important for any women who are in that postpartum period or menopause or perimenopause, or any period if they're just feeling a little lower, not having as much libido or anything in that space. Filled with natural ingredients, and it's really crafted to enhance sensation and pleasure and just promoting a more satisfying experience in general. Last but not least, we cannot forget about getting that mental edge, and you can use their supplement called the Clear Focus. It is a cognitive health supplement, and it is really great for mental clarity, and it features their premium ashwagandha extract, helps with the stress, enhance alertness, and supports your brain vitality without any fillers or artificial additives, which we love. So You can use my discount code biohackingbrittany for 20% off all of these products. I really recommend it. Check out the show notes or on my website. It is linked there. Use my discount code today. Don't wait, transform your health today and really enjoy supporting your energy, vitality, stamina, libido, and mental clarity through Recommend's premium products. No, it completely makes sense. And I love that you're able to connect with your clients like that in such a meaningful way. I think it's so interesting, and it's really hard to describe it to people who haven't tried to be sober before. The first time I did it, I remember my output at the gym was significantly better. And I remember, not that I even really needed to at the time at all, but I remember just like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, whoa, like I feel like I look more toned. Like I feel like being in the best shape that I want to be. And the only thing I've really changed is actually just dropping alcohol right now in this month. And just when you start to see those physical changes in yourself, and not that you should do it just for that, but it actually is very rewarding and motivating, especially if you are somebody who values health, fitness, and those types of things, because it really does get in the way of progress. It's exactly like you said, because what I realized as well is when I was drinking on the weekends only was that not only would I not exercise as much on the weekends as I would during the week, but I would get drunk and eat all sorts of food that I would never eat sober, like McDonald's, takeout, whatever it was. And then you would be hungover the next day. So you would eat crappy food the next day as well. And so it would be like this whole 48-hour cycle of, if you drink twice, like of alcohol, crappy food, weekend in and weekend out. And it's really hard to move the needle on health goals, whether it's fitness or whatever it might be, when that is occurring multiple times a month. And that also was like a big motivator for me, was like, wow, I wonder where I could be physically, mentally, all these things if I took a break. And the other thing I learned as well is how much alcohol can disrupt your menstrual cycle. So it is an endocrine disruptor. It is terrible for our hormones. Does not promote fertility whatsoever. And once I kind of started looking at that research and putting the pieces together of, hey, this is actually impacting my ovulation and I have irregular menstrual cycle. Okay, like, so now I'm just going to drink this alcohol and then I have to detox it. I'm going to make my liver like work harder to detox it, as well as detox my other hormones, and it's already overburdened, like everything like that. That was also very motivating for me to step away. So I encourage people to kind of like almost zoom out and think about how it's impacting your health in that type of way.
Yeah, I love that. And I found the same thing happening to me. I remember I gained quite a lot of weight in college when like the effects of, drinking and just not caring about what I was eating back then, like really took over. And so like, as I got into my mid to late 20s, it was always about losing those last 10 pounds. And I would try everything and I would work so hard. And then I took this break from alcohol and all of a sudden it just magically vanished. And I wanted to really learn, like, how did that happen? Like I was trying so hard before and I think that, rid of this, this stubborn weight around me. And I like really looked into it, did a lot of studies. I include them in my book, Euphoric, as well. But, there's multiple factors of like why alcohol. I'm not going to say you're going to magically lose weight. Everybody's is different. And that's maybe not even the point. Maybe it's more about body composition or just being healthier, But I think alcohol is definitely implied in weight gain. And I think why that is, there's so many factors. First of all, alcohol suppresses the signal to our brain that we're full. So if we're drinking alcohol, we don't register that we're actually full. It completely numbs that signal. So we can definitely overeat. The next thing it does is that it also blocks our nutrients. So a lot of the nutrients we're eating, whether it's the vitamins or the minerals that we're eating, alcohol will actually block the absorption of those nutrients, which also over time makes you hungrier because your body's hungry for those things, right? So it's like we're eating all these healthy foods, doing the supplements, doing all this stuff, and alcohol is not even allowing our body to fully process all of that, which by default can also make us hungrier. Alcohol also really slows down metabolism. So they studied, I think it was rats they studied that showed that, really similar response happens in humans, but they were given alcohol to rats and their metabolism completely shut down for about 2 to 3 hours afterwards. And so what happens is that the body has to process that alcohol. You cannot store alcohol on your body. And so it completely stops the process of processing, our carbs, our fat, our proteins. Those get put to the side so that the body can process the alcohol. So oftentimes that stuff can just get stored for later. And again, the fat or the weight can accumulate because of that. And so, I always remember being like, what's wrong with me? How come I can't get fitter? I didn't realize how much alcohol was affecting that. It also lowers your aerobic response. So alcohol, requires the heart to beat faster. And anyone who has one of those devices, like an Oura Ring, will actually notice that pretty right away, that it makes your heart beat faster, but not with the related exercise that you get from exercise. Over time, that diminishes your aerobic capacity and the ability for your heart to pump oxygen to your body. And it also makes your heart sag over time. So it's really not good for cardiovascular health, despite the, things we've heard about red wine being good for you. That's been completely debunked. There's no actual reputable proof that any of that is true, and that it's only about the opposite, that it's actually bad for our cardiovascular system. And it also decreases muscle growth and testosterone. So for any of us who are, trying to get fit or the best PR or, just increase a healthy body composition or whatever, it's not like alcohol is doing us any favors. Let's just say that.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And it's been really nice in the last few years to see this idea of being sober curious kind of take off. And for those who don't know, maybe haven't heard that term, it's kind of it's probably started on social media. I don't know where it started, but it's basically just this group or this idea of becoming sober for yourself, for health reasons, for whatever reason you want. But it's not necessarily becoming sober because you have an addiction. It's more of I'm just curious about what life would be like if I was sober. And it's really interesting to see that kind of take off in the wellness space and then extend beyond the wellness space as well. And what I've also noticed in the last few years, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well, is now when I go out for food, almost every menu will have a section on it for spirit-free drinks, whatever they call that little section, non-alcoholic, whatever it is. So becoming sober has actually become way more popular in the last few years. So it's a lot easier now to kind of move in society with it. At least that's what I found. Have you kind of found the same thing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Especially since I've been in this movement for so long, to see the changes over the last few years has been intense. And, before the Sober Curious movement started, we were in a period of time where we as women were drinking more than any other generation or any other time in history. If you think about it, there weren't breweries and wineries and alcohol in movie theaters a generation ago, right? So our drinking really went up and really was more normalized. Like you said, there's that mommy kind of juice culture where, when I was growing up, if a mom brought alcohol to a soccer game, that would be kind of signaling oh, I think she has an issue, and now it's it's casual. It's that's what we all do as parents. So I think it also came on the heels of this hypercharged, really strong drinking culture that kind of took over to a lot of different social spaces where it's just so normalized, just regular drinking so normalized. And then so on the back end of that, I think we really became a little bit more honest with ourselves. I don't know a single person on this planet other than a really young 18-year-old that doesn't feel worse for wear the next day after drinking. It's biologically impossible to wake up the next day after drinking and feel like $1,000,000 unless you're really young and it just hasn't had time to affect your body. So as a society, we feel it. We know that it doesn't feel good the next day. And I think we just became way more honest with ourselves about that, where that sober curiosity also came from, hey, I don't have to hit rock bottom. I don't have to call myself an alcoholic. I don't have to go to AA or be in recovery for the rest of my life. I can experiment with this lifestyle for whatever reason, whether I think I am drinking a little too much, or maybe it's not aligning with my health goals, or it's not helping me achieve my dreams. The reason really doesn't matter. It's personal to you and you don't owe anyone your reason. And just try it out and really see how you feel with it. And it's become, again, it really is a wellness movement. What other bad thing or thing that isn't as good for us do we need another excuse to not use it, right? But with alcohol, it's the only thing you have to defend why you're not drinking it or why you're not partaking. And so I think we're getting a lot more just permission these days of the alcohol-free movement is here. it's kind of like a trend like cigarette smoking, in the sense that like just the quantity and the push and the socialization of smoking cigarettes went down a lot in the last few decades. And I think the same thing's going to is happening with alcohol right now. We just know so much more about the health studies and stuff. And there's just a growing movement of people who are just like, hey, it's okay to be sober curious, or take a break, or go alcohol free, And I think that just gives more and more permission to people to do what feels right for them and not what society expects of them. Because I don't think I had a choice when I was younger. Like, it really felt like this expectation. If you don't go along with this social custom, you're going to be left out. And I want to live in a world where it really is a choice, not an expectation, not something that everyone just thinks you're going to do, or is the, pathway to coolness or rebellion or independence or sophistication, when we talk about like fine wines and stuff. And so, this alcohol-free movement is spreading. I think it's just going to keep growing and growing. And with that, so many alternatives, alternative drinks, alcohol-free drinks, mocktails, alcohol-free wines, beer, spirits, whatever, and just more inclusivity. And, when I go to a restaurant and I see that they only on their drink card have like wine or beer, and they don't even like try to even like show you like, okay, here's the alcohol-free, maybe like waters and teas we have. I'm kind of just like, how insulting almost that they like everybody in the world only ever wants to drink alcohol every single time they go to their restaurant. I love to see these options on the menu. Sometimes, most of the time, I'll still just order a water because I just love water. But it's just nice to see the world changing and that there is more options. And we see it working on the next generation. Like Gen Z is drinking way less than the millennials ever did. And it's just becoming less cool and stuff. So I think it's a really interesting time that we live in. And I actually just recorded a podcast episode that went live today on why no one should be surprised that you're not drinking in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really, really good point. And yeah, exactly like you said, like when I was in university, like if I didn't drink, I would have felt like an outsider. Like I would have felt like I'm missing out, FOMO, I'm not going to go to the bars, like all of that thing. And I wonder now, obviously I'm not in university anymore. I wonder now, like, with this sober movement, I wonder actually what it looks like in those environments. Because as an older adult, you can go to a restaurant, you can order a, alcohol-free mojito, sure. But what about those kids who are 21, who are going to the bars with their friends who don't drink, like the Gen Z? Like, I just wonder what they're doing. Maybe they're doing other things, right? Like, mushrooms have really taken off, cannabis, things like that. So yeah, I'm curious what the dynamic looks like in these parties that are similar to the parties that I used to go to.
Yeah, me too. And I've heard from people that age, some of the time, there's this alternative stuff going around, or just like it's okay not to drink in some circles. And then sometimes I'll hear from people who still feel that really strong expectation. I once was on a podcast with a 19-year-old who was really into success and like mindset, just one of those like real go-getters. And was like telling me that, the one thing he thinks hold him back is alcohol. And it's not like he was, drinking every day or like, already addicted to it or anything like that. He's just going out with his friends in university. But he told me he doesn't see a way out of it. Like he doesn't see a way out of still belonging with his friends and, bonding with them without drinking. And I kind of got sad because I was like, somebody created that culture. Somebody created that expectation, whether it's my generation or the generation before, like, this is culture that's demanding that, and I think that we can stand up and change culture too. Because everyone who stands up and, whether you order a mocktail or you just tell someone you're not drinking or that you're alcohol free, I think it's spreading the permission to other people that this is an like appropriate, okay lifestyle choice and that there's no shame in it. And I think that changes drinking culture. I think every time we like defy that expectation, we're actually showing other people another way, which is really cool.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's really taking off, and that's a tricky space to be in for that guy. Like I couldn't imagine being that young and trying to make that decision, because I definitely was not sober at 19. So I have I have a family friend, and he is in a relationship, and his partner drinks quite a bit. Her whole family kind of drinks. Okay. So very much like, I think she's 27. Not that the age really matters, but so she'll have like a glass of wine at night, and then she'll go out for Friday and Saturday. And then when he goes to her family's house, there's always like multiple bottles of wine. And it's just like in this whole family that they drink a lot. And he is concerned that she drinks too much and has tried to like kind of approach it of like, hey, maybe, maybe we should do dry January. And so he tried to do dry January. He lasted 2 weeks. She wouldn't even try to do it. And she's like, no, that's silly. Like, why would we even bother doing that type of thing? So I see him kind of like struggling in this relationship. And I'm curious if you have any advice for those listening who are maybe in a similar boat of, I kind of want to step away from alcohol, but my partner is drinking a lot and it's so a part of their identity. I'm not sure I'm strong enough, or I'm not sure what I can do to help them. Like, what would you recommend when it's like that personal and it's in a relationship?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, obviously every relationship's different and the level of ability to communicate that kind of stuff is going to be different to each relationship. But what I've seen work the best is really when you kind of lead with your own change first. So, if you want to go alcohol free, and I hear this from women a lot, that they want to go alcohol free or take a break, but their partner drinks, what are they going to do? And I'm like, well, we don't really like make other life choices based on what our partner does. Like, we don't decide I'm going to go to grad school or sign up for a half marathon only if my partner does it with me. You know what I mean? Right. So like that independence, I think, is really helpful. And a lot of times our actions speak a lot louder than our words, especially in like couplehood, that, sometimes you don't want to nag or you don't want to coach someone, like they kind of have their own decisions. So I've seen it happen so many times that one person will take the break from alcohol. They start living healthier, they're happier, they start telling their partner how good they're feeling. And the partner, it's not like they were completely ignorant to the fact that drinking doesn't make them feel good. I think if we're all being really honest to ourselves, we know we don't feel good after drinking multiple drinks and waking up the next day. And so you just start to see that, and it starts to either inspire you or you start to get jealous of it, or you're just like, what is this person doing? Like, why are they so chipper and feeling so great and all this kind of stuff? And oftentimes that can kind of sway someone, I think, more. So I've seen people, for example, where like the woman will take a break from alcohol and maybe 4 or 5 months later, the husband's kind of like, oh, like, I think I want to try this now. Or maybe drinking less too, because it stops being fun to drink by yourself, And that's what I really saw in my partnership is like my husband will still drink occasionally, like very occasionally. But like I never told him to. And it wasn't like at first, but like, we changed kind of the way we bonded too. So instead of going out for sushi on Friday nights and drinking or having everything revolve around alcohol, we kind of changed up date night. And, I remember that year we actually signed up for a half marathon together and we started training for our dates. Like on Friday nights, we would be running 3 or 4 miles or 5 miles together, whatever it necessitated. And we started playing board games. We started going on more hikes. It was actually really cool. So, even if the other person's still drinking, it could be really interesting to just find what are other ways we can bond and spend really good quality time together that isn't always revolving around alcohol, and getting a little creative with that so that you're not leaving the person behind. You're kind of saying, I still really want to spend a lot of quality time together, but I just don't want it to always revolve around alcohol. And just, again, your own actions. Now, I have seen in couples sometimes that just an honest conversation can help. And it just really depends on like how attached the other person is to alcohol. If the other person isn't very attached, then maybe they'd be more than willing to take a break right up front with you too. But oftentimes, like in this situation that you describe, her kind of defense mechanism's up right now, right? So she doesn't change and she feels like she's being attacked. So probably like more conversation around it will still have her, feel flared up like that. And maybe the other way of kind of just going first and starting to introduce like more mocktails and just like what happens when one person goes alcohol free, that really can inspire other people. And I've seen that happen in friend groups as well. I've seen that happen in families as well. And it might not be really quick. It might not just be like a week later, someone gets influenced by you and is doing it too. It could take a while. Maybe it could take a year or two before they even really start to like pick up on it and start to want to get interested as well. But I have seen it. I've seen it like so many times over and over again that I really do believe in miracles like that. And I do believe that when a partnership, we are the strongest influence on our partner, right? But it's often not our words.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Is, like leading by example. And it took me a long time to learn that in my own life with my own friends and family, mostly with my family, not necessarily to do with alcohol, but just to be healthy in general and, eat whole foods and not processed foods, for example. Like there was many years in the beginning when I started becoming healthier where I would like lecture them and like, do you know how much sugar is in this? And like, this is so processed. It's going to raise your blood sugar and your hormones and blah, blah, blah. It's so bad for you. And it was like in one ear, out the other. And then I stopped kind of preaching about it. And I just would continue to make my own decisions that reflected my values. And now here we are 10, 14 years later, whatever it's been. And it's so interesting when we come together for a meal or if I go home to my mom's house, there's like the nut milk in the fridge. There's all of the different fruits and veggies. She's like, so adapted now and on the same train because I've stuck to it and just been that example and just stopped preaching about it. And then the best part is, which I'm sure this happens in the alcohol-free movement as well, is when the people you care about most actually start to become intrigued in what you're doing and then ask you questions. So now I get these messages like, oh, like I was thinking about making like an avocado smoothie. Like, what do you think I should add to it? Or whatever the question is. And then you're like, yes, like this is what I've been waiting for. I'm so excited to like help you be healthier. And I think it would be the same with alcohol of like, let me lead by example. You do you. And I hope over time, my positive, healthy habits can rub off on you. And when you're ready to ask me questions about it, like I'm going to be here essentially.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it is exactly the same. And it's kind of ironic because like a lot of people at first feel kind of, I think because of the stigma we've put on quitting drinking and just this idea that you have to be waking up in the morning, putting vodka on your cereal to even qualify to quit drinking. It's like people feel kind of embarrassed to even like tell people at first that they're not drinking or they're taking a break. And it's like the tables turn so fast when you start to learn to be confident about it and you own it and you're just like so proud of it. And you look up to all these other people, whether they're in the health or personal development world who don't drink, and you just start to see it as a secret to success. And then your friends start asking you about it because inevitably, like, again, like I said, who actually feels good after drinking the next day, right? So it's like the more honest we are, the more introspective, the more intuitive we are. I think everyone can really connect with that truth and be kind of curious about it. It doesn't matter. That doesn't have to mean they have to quit drinking for forever, but it is so interesting to see. Just like I think naturally everyone actually desires to be healthier. If they're really being honest with themselves, it's the same thing, so you're going to just inspire people. People will ask you questions, how you did it, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really encouraging to your own health journey as well. When people start to reach out to you and you can be that like beacon of light that they're looking to. I want to close by asking you about this idea of balance. And I have my own, perspective of balance and people say things like everything in moderation and, one glass of wine is not going to kill you, that type of thing. Where do you kind of stand on that with alcohol? And can we have some sort of healthy balance that we bring it in, like maybe only on occasion or like, I don't know, like what does that actually look like in your opinion?
Yeah, of course. Well, I want to say like any form of conscious, like drinking less or not at all is obviously going to be amazing for you and your body. So wherever you start is beautiful, and that kind of stuff. The thing that I have an opinion on is that, to me, alcohol is not a food or a food group. It is not like something that's like we have to eat. It is actually a drug. It is in the 5 most addictive drugs, in the United States and the whole world. And it really does change our neurochemistry. So a lot of foods can obviously change our body and stuff like that. But I mean, you cannot drive after you drink alcohol, right? Like it actually is something that completely changes your level of consciousness as well. And there's a lot of like shamans out there who will have like plant-based things or like, hallucinogens, but would never touch alcohol because it literally, when you look at the chemical property, it is ethanol, which is a poison to the human body, right? So I kind of think of it as like a totally different category than a food group. And when it comes to, like balance with it, the thing is that like this moderate drinking has like taken over, but like it's so overblown in the sense that nobody's really actually moderate drinking, right? So like most people drink above the health guidelines. And when you look at it, like especially in Canada, who's a leader on this, they're saying women shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 drinks a week for the like lowest risk, right? And that's not what I grew up learning or anything like that. I thought you could have way more than that. Most people are over drinking, whether it's on the weekend or like nobody should be drinking every single day, right? Even if it's just 1 glass, like that's still a habit that's really hard to change. And you get, you're missing out on all that REM sleep and all that kind of stuff. So I think our definition of moderate drinking really is heavy drinking. And they say that even when women have more than 2 drinks or 2 drinks or more in any one sitting, they are heavy drinking. And if they have more than 7 drinks a week, they are heavy drinking. So I don't know about you, but when I was young, definitely didn't think 7 drinks a week was heavy drinking, right? Like that would have been like, great, check mark. I did it. I'm super healthy. So I think we have to recognize that even the definitions that scientists are using they're like saying really like low amounts. Like it's not these really strong, high amounts of like beer, and it's really low pours that they're doing. So usually a standard drink is supposed to only be 4 ounces of a low alcohol wine. Whereas in a restaurant, you're getting poured like 6 ounces and it's a higher alcohol wine, right? So we're not even like one drink isn't usually always even equivalent to like what they're talking about in labs and stuff like that. So that's just one thing to recognize. And I think for me, it comes down to like something that we do habitually is often sometimes we're using it for our needs and we're not using it to process our emotions. And like if you're coming home and having a glass every day because you're stressed out, you're never really learning how to deal with that stress and then the underlying emotions that are actually telling you, hey, maybe this isn't the right job for you. Maybe you're supposed to launch your own business. Maybe you're supposed to, go to this different company, right? Because we keep like kind of numbing out. So I do think that the best thing we can do, like I say, is take that break first instead of trying to just drink less. Because like a prolonged break away from alcohol can really reset not only our habit, that like quick kind of like just reaction where we just like feel a cue and we grab for a drink, and learn to really change the mindset so we can lower our subconscious desires. And then I think when we decide like, okay, do I want to stay alcohol free or do I want to go back to drinking? I think we would have to be really introspective and ask what that means to us. If that means occasional drinking, which I would say of any form of drinking, that's probably the one that I'd want you to do, is the occasional one. What does occasional mean, right? Does it mean on 3 weddings I go to a year, or does it mean every weekend, right? And is that starting to actually be more regular than occasional, right? And then if you are going to go back to like regular drinking, what does that look? And so for me personally, like those rules, all that kind of like criteria under what goes into like when is appropriate, what does balance really look like, I think we're really maddening. And, a lot of times it could look like if it's a little bit every day, that's actually still really not very good for your system. You know what I mean? They want to see you drinking way less than that. Even 2 drinks a week the woman's risk of breast cancer goes up by 15%. So I do think for me, like alcohol just isn't a different category. It's not a food, it's a drug. And I think that, the best to aim for would probably be occasional drinking and to feel really clear about that. And if you drink and you don't like it, let that like tell you what you really want. If you were looking forward to an experience where you're like, oh my God, I'm not really drinking, but I'm going to drink on my birthday. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to go out with my friends. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, that didn't feel good. You know what I mean? It's like a really good lesson to be like, actually, I didn't have that much fun. I didn't really enjoy myself very much. And now I don't feel very good. And it can kind of just keep teaching us of like what we really do want in our lives, as long as we're open and aware and don't just fall back into the habit. So it's like, I almost think as long as you're really introspective and intuitive, you can't land the wrong way, because each experience you have will keep teaching you more and more about yourself and what you really, really want, as long as you're not like blindly just going back into a habit without, really being conscious around it. So that's my personal take on it. And, I'm sure other people could find their own kind of something that works for them. But what I see the most of, and this is what's like, really taken over our world, is we have just this blind adherence to it. We've accepted alcohol into our lives when we're really young, and then we keep it up as a habit until we die. And that's what's like, okay, we basically never made that choice. Were kind of brainwashed into it. Let's actually take a step back to actually decide, do I really want this at this level in my life?
I completely agree with that. And yeah, I've been there, like when I did 75 hard and you're done, and then you have that glass of wine, and then after the glass of wine, you're like, really? Was that worth it? Like it doesn't have, especially once you've actually tried to be sober for like, let's say at least a month, maybe at least even 2 weeks. And then you drink, you're like, oh, like this actually doesn't have the same thing that I thought it had. Like, it doesn't have the same zing. Like, I have a friend who just had a baby a couple months ago, and, she craved red wine during her pregnancy because she used to drink a lot. And she was like, man, I can't wait until I can drink. And then postpartum came, she had her red wine, and she's like, I just really don't care for it. She's like, I thought it was going to taste better and like be better than it is. And she's like, I don't even really want wine anymore. So it's so interesting how just like your whole sentiment of let's take a break to reset can completely change your perspective for your future. And I just really encourage people to even just try the dry 30 days and see how you feel afterwards.
Yeah, I love it. And, I love because like, especially since our neurochemistry rebalances, we're often like going through a low when we have alcohol in our system, that when we drink again, it feels really good. So when you like completely rebalance your neurochemistry and you're not going through those like low and high troughs, it actually doesn't feel that good, right? Like it doesn't really do as much. And then you're faced with more of the negative consequences. So I think like your friend needed that experience. And I think I needed to drink again too in my like February to like really learn the lesson I was meant to learn there and to really just know what I like and what I don't like, And it's fine if you keep experiencing it a few times to like learn that, or just you make your own peace with it, whatever that is. But it's just really fascinating how you could completely change your source of rewards and pleasure. And I think we have to do that with food too. If we're used to rewarding ourselves with really, processed foods and unhealthy foods, then, we learning how to treat yourself and how to reward yourself and taking care of yourself can start to be like the new self-care, basically, instead of just these like more toxic, unhealthy ways that we've learned how to do it in the past.
Yeah, can totally be a coping mechanism. And again, it goes back to like, what are you coping with? Like, let's actually dig deeper into this issue or attachment or feeling that you're chasing, and why don't you have it? And some people are just simply not even ready to go down that avenue. So it kind of depends where you're at. And that's kind of like what I love about the work that you do. I think you really do meet people where they're at. And it's not necessarily like, hey, be sober for the rest of your life, and that's the only way that you can do it. It's like, no, let's have a realistic discussion about this. And okay, so maybe you did 30 days. Okay, now let's reassess. Or maybe you drink on occasion. What does that look like? So it's way more practical than black and white, which a lot of people, I think, preach sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that's like the concept between either sober curious or sober-ish. It's like, what is going to be my default state? And what do I do? Like, there's what I do every once in a while versus what I do on the routine. Right. And I think that's what the most important thing to do is like when you're eating healthy and you're treating your body right most of the time, that's the best thing you can do. And it's like, if you don't have to be a perfect person to like be part of this movement or anything like that. I'm alcohol free because I just don't see any point to drinking. But I think everyone's really welcome who just wants to, see a world where alcohol is just not as like dominant in our sphere,
Yeah, I completely agree. So if people want to connect with you, work with you, get your book, how can they do that and where can they go?
Awesome. So if you go to www.euphoricbook.com, you'll find my book in whatever country you're living in. That's a really great guide to not only retrain your mindset on seeing alcohol as a reward, really understand how many amazing benefits happen when you take a break from alcohol, but then also gives you a 2-month plan to follow so that you can like follow along and go through each week as you're going on this journey, really changing your mindset. And also those things that come up, like what do you say in social situations, or what if you have a vacation coming up or stuff like that. And then do check out my website. It's euphoricaf.com. You can learn more about working with me in my signature program, Become Euphoric, to change your relationship with alcohol. And I also help people who've already evaluated the role of alcohol find their deeper purpose and get certified as coaches. So those are the other 2 programs I have. I host retreats also around the world for alcohol-free and sober-curious women if you're interested in finding more community. And then I'm on Instagram at euphoric.af. And I love, love, love to hear from you. So if this conversation like sparked any questions or anything you want to just chat about, please feel free to send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Oh, I just love how many different things you're working on. I think that's so cool to have different offers and kind of, again, meet people where they're at. And a retreat would be awesome. I need to look into that. That's something that I would love to do.
Yeah, we just got back from Costa Rica on a really incredible retreat. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love Costa Rica. I was there last year. Such an incredible spot and perfect for this. Perfect for a sober curious or sober retreat. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I will definitely hook everyone up with all of your links. And I loved talking to you, and I really just appreciate your time and talking with us today.
No, thank you so much. It was an honor.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.